Wow, yeah, this is really nostalgic using Skype. It's been.
I feel like we should get our cassette players out. And
We should. I have my physical media DVD, so I'm still nostalgic.
I've got all my VHS up there, but I don't have
Nice.
Neverending Story.
Why? You do own it on some form of thing. I would.
I don't. I need to get. I know that they're re-releasing it this year, and I think I might be able to get into the special features, so I'll buy that one if I'm on it.
Heck yeah. Because that's the thing. It's like Neverending Story's been out for many 40 years. That's insane. That's just like time's flying. I'm sure somebody's lying about that 40 years. Must be the case. But it's never had an all singing, all dancing, loaded with special features release, has it? Which has never stopped me upgrading every time. But
I think for the 30th, they did a German, or 35th, or somewhere in there, they did a German re-release with a couple of things on it. Maybe it was the 30th, but they haven't. It doesn't feel like that they've done a big one really for the international version.
If only somebody would do like a really in-depth documentary about the Neverending Story.
Oh my God,
I think there's something in it. What do you reckon, Zay? Do you think there's something in that? Should we start working on one of those?
Abort.
So,
quickly.
So Zay, you're an event organizer or is it event court? What job title do you put on your invisible label?
Cat herder, I think, is probably accurate.
Official luck dragon herder would be.
Dragon and unicorn herder for this one for sure.
Racing snail wrangler, possibly. So yeah, we're going to try and multitask because even though you're working on separate projects, they are in the same project and they're in this wonderful Fantasia world. So I'm going to start with you first, Zay. Where did the idea for the Neverending Story Fantasy Con come from? Let's go back to that.
Do you know what? I can't even remember now. I can't even really remember yesterday. It's also full on. I think that I knew I really wanted to do. I like to do anniversary meetups or reunions and that sort of thing of my favourite fantasy films of the 80s, and we've done Dark Crystal and we've done Labyrinth and other things. So it just felt that this, Neverending Story turning 40, I wanted to do something for it. I knew I definitely wanted to do some sort of celebration, and I already was organising a bit of a fantasy convention, just celebrating all kind of 80s fantasy films from our childhoods. And so it sort of just made sense to put the two together, really, to be able to celebrate the Neverending Story with some of the other fantasies, because there's so much crossover. We know that people that have worked on Neverending Story might have also worked on Labyrinth and Return to Oz, and generally if you like one, you probably like a few of them. So kind of bringing them together in the same space made a lot of sense. And then connecting up with Tammy, who's wonderful, and her new film, and wanting to celebrate that, and her also wanting to celebrate the anniversary. And then Lisa with this incredible documentary. It all just kind of came together really well that we would have this really sort of fun, magical, celebratory weekend.
And where did you start? What was the first step where you're like, right, okay, I've got the idea. I want to celebrate the Neverending Story. What was the first thing you ticked off your list going, now it's actually a thing, it's ongoing?
Having Tammy on board was a really good start, being so important to the film, and then sort of connecting up with Lisa, and then thinking, this all sort of makes sense now.
And it does all make sense now. It looks amazing. And what's your relationship with the Neverending Story? When did you first see it? I know it's a 1984 film, but sometimes films come out in the UK like a few months after, and it turns out, hang on a minute, it was actually 1985. I was a young teen when I saw that. I would watch anything at the cinema. So, Beastmaster and Labyrinth and Neverending Story. So if a new film came out, I went to see it. I saw Neverending Story 3 times in its opening week or two. I was just glued to that. I related a lot to Bastian. I was the kid who, and I've never got thrown in a skip or a dumpster, but I was a fast runner, shall we say, at school. So I really related to that character, and I loved reading things like The Phantom Tollbooth, Charlotte's Web. So when I saw Bastian on screen, I'm like, that's kind of me. I want a luck dragon. I want to go off to Fantasia and maybe not be chased by a wolf, but you know, that sort of thing. So what was your relationship with the film?
I was first introduced to the film. I wasn't lucky enough to see it at the cinema. I was first introduced to it when it was on TV, and I was around my friend's house. We were little, and you know, just in that kind of playing with fantasy dolls and getting all in that kind of fancy realm. And my friend was like, "Oh, well, we have to sit down and watch this film, but you know, it's quite scary, and you know, I'm really terrified of the wolf. So could we sit down and we'll watch it together?" So we did. We sat down and we watched it together, and both of us were kind of in awe and a bit behind our little blankets and really enjoying it. And just, you know, you just really fall in love with all of it, all of the characters. The Empress is so mesmerizing, the journey, how heartfelt it is, and I think there's so much that resonates with so much of us. And like you were saying, sort of, Stuart, about being that kind of kid, for me, fantasy and escapism was really important. So I think that's probably why I really love so many of those kind of fantasy films, because I just wanted anything that would take me away from the everyday, from the mundane. And yeah, so that was the first experience I had, and then from that point I was like, oh, I love this.
It sounds like we're all still the same. We're all still escaping from things into our own little projects and stuff. So, you know, it's not just children that need escapism. I think we as adults
it's never
would
stopped.
agree. Never ever
But
stop.
we can still go back to those fantasy films, so we can still put
Yeah.
them on as adults and have that escapism, which is great.
And does it take you back when you view, and you obviously use the Neverending Story as the prime example, but there are other films like Princess Bride and Flight the Navigator and all these sort of the cluster of 80s films. I put them on and I'm right back when I watched it as a kid. It does time travel me back to the happier times when I was watching those films.
Yeah, absolutely. And you find yourself quoting it and you think, God, I haven't seen this film in years and years. But you remember every line, and like you said, you're right back to the first time you watched it, you know, with your friends or at the cinema or, you know, on TV with your family on a Sunday afternoon. So yeah, it's really nice.
I hosted a Star Wars panel a few years ago at a convention, and John Altman was on there and Brian Wheeler was on there, and it was a Star Wars panel, but I really wanted to go, do you know what, Brian, let's talk Neverending Story. And I think I got one question in, but I really wanted to just chat to him about his experience making the Neverending Story. But I will get there. I will quiz him one day on all things Fantasia.
Well, if you come to the Neverending Fantasy Con, you can quiz him.
He's such a nice guy. Have you met? I'm guessing you've met Brian because he's in the
documentary.
He's on the documentary. Lovely guy. Yeah. So Lisa, say again?
He's a fascinating guy.
He is indeed. So what is your experience going back to the Neverending Story, Lisa? When did you first watch it? Why did you first watch it? It's always a question. What makes people go, I will watch this movie, I'll give it some time out of my life?
I wish I had memories of seeing certain films for the first time, because so many people I talk to have these really strong memories of like, oh, I was with my friend and she was scared of the wolf, or I saw it in the cinema and it was just amazing. And I don't really have a memory of when I first watched it, because a lot of the films that I saw were because my parents recorded it off the TV onto a VHS. So I never really owned the VHS apart from Dark Crystal when it snapped and I was devastated. But everything else was just, you know, the little hand scrolled like sticker on the side of Goonies and Neverending Story. And it was just in the case at home. So it was just one that I kept putting on. But I do remember that I couldn't watch it for a while, even though we had it. It's because my mum, she hadn't seen it, but she saw a picture and said, oh, Falco, there's a dragon. It's too scary. You can't watch that. But you can watch Dark Crystal and Watership Down.
Oh no.
Which is so traumatizing. No. Land Before Time to me is like the worst film ever, but I love it. So I didn't watch it straight away when we had it on VHS, but I must have been like 7 or 8, I think, when I first saw it. And again, it's like what Zay says, it's such a magical film, and it's this world that you've never seen before as a kid, and you're watching someone your age go on an adventure. So it's like the Goonies, they're your age when you watch it, and Labyrinth, she was my age when I was watching it. So it just felt like you could connect more with the characters because they were kids in these films. but it's just so magical. Like the sets are real, the puppets are real, and it's just a film that has kind of stuck with me, like many 80s kids up until now. Keeps going.
Sometimes I go back and I watch a film that came out 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and you look at it and go, ooh, that's a little bit dated now. I go back and watch Neverending Story, which is 40 years old, and you're like, that still looks cool. It's like Alien. You go back and you go, that's still a perfect film.
Yeah. Well, it's the magic of the real puppetry, isn't it? The real models. And I watched Titanic the other day and I was like, well, that's really, that green screen could probably like a bit better now. But then you, like you say, you watch Flight of the Navigator and Dark Crystal and Labyrinth and all these films, and it's like, it's still the same. It doesn't date because it was there and they did those things and they were real. It was really special.
Sometimes there might be like a music track where you're like, okay, that kind of dates the film a little bit.
No,
Sometimes
not
in a lot of I love them. And sometimes there'll be like a haircut or a mobile, huge mobile phone or something. You go, well, maybe that dates it. But I went back and watched Avatar and I'm like, oof, that looks oh god. And yet at the time, people's jaws were dropping.
Yeah.
So what?
It's a wonderful decade.
It really is. I mean, it's like 1984. So I pricked off my physical media DVD. So 1984, Neverending Story, Gremlins, Temple of Doom, Firestarter, Supergirl, Ghostbusters, Beverly Hills Cop, and Terminator. I was too sort of young to watch those two on DVD. That's just the ones I grabbed off my shelf a few minutes ago. 1984, 85, 83 was an amazing year for sort of fantasy films. And I would love to know whether, and we'd probably ask them if people attend the event, did they ever think that in 40 years' time people would still be talking about the Neverending Story? But we are.
Yeah, I don't think anyone that makes a film knows that it's really going to be successful. And a lot of these films, it's really interesting because like Neverending Story and Flight of the Navigator and even Flash Gordon, they weren't successful really when they came out. It was when they were on home movies and VHS and they started the television run that a lot of them started to get the traction of being a success. So I think it's really special when that type of thing can reignite, reinvigorate, I don't know what the word would be, the popularity in it. But I think everyone would do a film hoping that it's a success.
Yeah.
But it's only the special few that 40 years later you're still talking about.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was a lot of films that came out 40 years ago. There's probably like a dozen that came out in 84 that are still around. So there's a lot that have been unfortunately forgotten. And nothing got them, I guess, which is a shame.
Nothing, bruh.
So putting the Neverending Story Fantasy Con together, Zay, what is the one thing that you're doing with it or you've done with it that you would probably say, do you know what, in 5 years' time, I'm going to look back on that one thing and just geek the hell out because it's like, oh my God, I actually did that. There must be a standout moment. Well, there doesn't have to be, but there might be many. There might be none. I don't know.
I think all of it really. And I mean, being a big geek myself, I have to sort of separate the nerd from the organizer so that we make sure that we're doing stuff that everyone's going to enjoy, but also that it still works and runs properly and makes sense and all that kind of like boring stuff as well. But always I think, if I might enjoy it, that's a good start. Then I talk to my friends, then I do my market research, and then I put it out there to see, what do people think? What do they enjoy? And we've always sort of done that with our events to see, what might be fun, and then trying to do things that are a little bit different. So there's still a lot that we haven't announced yet. There's a few things that I think are really really different, really special. That's
you
kind
can
of
announce them all here. It's fine. Nobody's listening. It's not.
Well, Tammy is going to be doing a workshop of sorts. So I think this is probably the first time at a convention she's done like an interactive workshop. So you'll be able to do something with Tammy and maybe take something away with you, which is really fun. And yeah, we've got a few other like little workshops and fun, more interactive things to announce that will, that are just a little bit special and a little bit different. But I think the main thing is anytime when you get the kind of the cast and crew together from a film or a film franchise, there's just something magical about it. You see them coming together. They might not have seen each other in 40 years. There's tears. There's all this stuff that, and maybe even the attendees don't see because that's happened in the morning before everyone arrives, but there's just a little bit of magic in the air bringing those people together. And even if they didn't work on the same Neverending Story, they still have that kind of collective special experience of having worked on this franchise. So it's nice to be able to kind of bring them all together. And we will obviously be having a special panel with everyone who's sort of worked on that whole franchise. So that'll be really fun, moderated by Lisa. And yeah, so we're really looking forward to that. But yeah, there's lots of fun little things that we haven't announced yet. And yeah, just really looking forward to all of it, really. Very, very excited to celebrate with the fans.
And where will these things be announced? He says, already knowing the answer, because I follow all your pages. But some
yes,
people,
thank you very much. So yeah, if you the best place, if you've got Facebook, I know, a bit of a necessary evil, social media, but if you've got Facebook, follow us on there, the Neverending Fantasy Con. Follow us on Instagram at Thames Con. Those are the best places. Or if you don't have those, but you can get on the internet, hopefully you can if you're watching this, then sign up to our newsletter on our website at www.neverendingfantasycon.com, where we put out all of our sort of announcements. And if you sign up to the newsletter, you might hear first about things. So Stuart, I think you posted about some of our guest announcements that had been announced in the newsletter, but we hadn't officially announced yet. So that's the kind of
well, that's your fault for saying it in the newsletter. Say that's not my
that's
fault.
fine. We want people to share it. It's all
okay.
Good.
That's okay then.
So yeah, those are the kind of places you'll get to see these things. But what people need to understand is that we can be announcing activities and guests literally to the day of the event, and it wouldn't be unusual for us 2 days before the event to suddenly say, oh, we've got this person, because we're waiting on obviously filming schedules for people, travel, there could be lots of other things going on, but we try to, we have invited everyone that should be invited. And yeah, and as soon as we know for sure that they're coming, they get announced straight away. So we don't sit on it going, oh, I think I'll announce that in 2 weeks' time. As soon as we know, we excitedly, we'll announce it. But there's lots going on in the background, isn't there, Lisa? We've been working hard together to try and get.
It's going to be such a fun event, but yeah, we're making it as great as possible. And with Zay's wonderful event experience, I'm really excited to see what it's going to be like.
What is the one thing that you're massively looking forward to, Lisa? Can't say the whole event because Jay said that and copped with a cop out answer.
I'm really looking forward to meeting Brian Froud, because I've never met him and I've got a couple of things that I want signed, and I just think he's a genius. And I'm looking forward to the Neverending Story panel. I think just like Zay said, how kind of having everyone there, even if they're from different Neverending Stories, they're like part of the legacy. So I'm really excited to see how that will go.
I mean, when you are going to be hosting a panel or having a conversation, how much prep do you do? I often do none, because that kind of works. Really? Okay. Yep.
I think I will. I mean, obviously I know a lot from making the documentary already. But I'll definitely prep. I think I would be too nervous to go into it without preparing. So,
I mean, of all the people to host the Neverending Story panel, you're pretty qualified, aren't you? Really, you've already been doing lots and lots of research anyway by doing the documentary. So
yeah,
there's not many that
I know a lot about the first one. There's a lot about the second and third that I could know more. So I will do my research on those two.
Because it's unusual about there's a trilogy of films. There's more coming down the pipeline, and some people are getting mad about that. It's like, seriously, it doesn't damage the original. I don't understand why people get mad about remakes, and that's a whole nother episode that we could do. But the first one is definitely the most popular of the three. Even with me, I've seen 2 and 3 maybe a couple of times each. I've seen the first one probably into the hundreds. And I don't know what it is about 2 and 3 that just don't resonate as much as the first one does with me. And I'm not saying they're not as good. I don't know. I don't feel like I revisit those as often as I should. Why do you think number 2 and 3 aren't as hailed? And should they be? I think they should be, because they're good films. But
I think there's always an element of sequels where the first one can take years to make and to get into production, and so much care and detail is put in, and then when they see its success, it's almost the second and third one are just rushed to try and capitalize on it. So not as much thought is going to go into it. But also, little story from Colin Arthur, which you will see in the documentary, who created he did Falcor and the Rockbiter and was one of the puppeteers and did all the sculptures, and he made the puppets and did the hair and makeup. He said, even though he has a Falcor head still, which you can see in the documentary, and he has one of the Rockbiters in Madrid, all the rest of the puppets were really put into a tent after filming, and there was a huge snowstorm and the tent collapsed because of the weight of the snow. And instead of taking everything out and repairing it or saving it, they just bulldozed it and
no.
So he gave a really great analogy when we had stopped recording. He was like, to then go and do the second one, it's like if someone gives you a script, you read it, or you write a script, and you have to then rewrite it from memory, and it's never going to be the same. Yeah. So they really struggled trying to recreate a lot of the puppets in the second one. And it just, you watch the second one and straight away you compare it to the first one. It's like, why doesn't the Rockbiter look the same? Why doesn't this look the same? So I think that's a lot of the issue as well. It's just, it doesn't have the same feel to the first one, even though I think they tried to recreate it. That's a long-winded way.
That was a good one, though, because it does. You hear people talking about the first one so much, you don't necessarily hear people talking about number 2 and number 3 as much. But I do remember watching 2.
Sorry.
I do remember watching 2, going, this looks cheaper than there's something missing. There's some sort of magic that was in the first film that just doesn't seem to be in 2 for some reason. That's just a very vague. I haven't seen number 2 probably since it came out, so it's many years.
Sequels will always be compared to the first one, whereas the first one is standalone and is compared to nothing. Although Neverending Story, people were comparing it like to the book, but there's a bit more flexibility in seeing in having a successful first film that there's not something that it's followed to look at and go, it's not quite the same, it's not quite the same. Like if the second Neverending Story came out as the first one, maybe it would have been more successful,
I always think that about, everybody goes crazy about the Indiana Jones film, the most recent one. It's terrible, and I'm thinking if that was the first one and that came out in like 1981 or whatever it was, people would lose their minds. They'd be like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. But because there's been films before, they're like, this is terrible, and they forget how to have fun.
I liked the last Indiana Jones.
I didn't
like the skull one, but I loved the Dial of Destiny.
Yep, same. So you were talking about sort of juggling, geeking out, and being in charge, organizing the event on the day. I would give the one tip I would just 100% have to give you is make sure you find a little bit of time to just enjoy everything you've done. Even a few minutes just to have a look around.
I'll make you a nice cup of tea and you can just relax.
I always, do you know what, Stuart? I always when you're sort of in the thick of it, you're just in sort of survival mode, to be honest. But what I really enjoy is after the event is over and I can kind of sit back with my cup of tea and relax and reflect a bit, and then I see people saying they enjoyed it or posting their own pictures. I get to watch some of the panels afterwards that have been recorded. I get people telling me they had a nice time. That's kind of what it's all about. It sounds a bit cheesy, but if everyone's there and they've had a really great time and they can share their experiences they've had with me, then that's great. I've done my job and I'm happy.
And I would also think, obviously, putting the event together, you are managing to meet Tammy and Jason and all these sort of stuff doing that. So you just snatch your geek moments when you can do.
Yeah, exactly. I do. There'll be a moment. I think like on the Sunday for me will be the time that I get to enjoy myself, because we've got the world premiere, which is just so exciting. And for me, that's the real mind-blowing part of the whole thing, because if you think about films like Neverending Story or Princess Bride, these cult classics that, like we said, might not have been quite such financial successes at the time, but they find their audience and you love them and you can kind of really get lost in their fantasy. I feel like we're seeing that with Man and Witch, and wouldn't it be great in 40 years time to say you were there and we were there? So for me, it's so magical being at the premiere, the first showing of this brand new fantasy film Tammy coming back to the big screen, the most amazing cast, and just sharing that with the cast and crew as well, and then going on to be able to be part of this VIP party. I mean, these are the things that the public don't often get to be a part of, so being able to actually get along to it and be part of that and hang out with these amazing people that have made this amazing film, I think is going to be so special. And hopefully for me, that will be the time where I can relax a little bit, enjoy networking at the party, and just and let Tammy do all the hard work, because that's her bit.
Yeah. Because some conventions you go to, and it's, you know, it's a warehouse, it's filled with tables, there's guests, there's vendors, there's, you know, and that's fine. We all like those sort of things. But looking at the rundown of the Neverending Story Fantasy Con, that's not that. You know, Friday, Lisa, your documentary is going to be showing. So Saturday, there's all talks, and well, I've written some of it down because it was that much stuff. So guests, I do research. You see, I was lying when I said I didn't. Talks, workshops, you've got merchandise, prop displays, which that sounds interesting and intriguing. Sunday then is Man and Witch. Then there's the VIP dinner, and so it's not just a case of everybody into this building, go do your thing, right? Bye. Hope you've had a great day. It seems, even though it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it feels like it's 3 separate days, which is really stupid because they are 3 separate days. But you know what I mean? They've all got a different sort of theme to them under the fantasy umbrella. Was that always the plan to go, let's mix it up, or?
I think so. I think once we'd started sort of talking about it, it made sense that we know that these events sometimes can be destination that people travel in for it. And I always think if you're getting a flight in or you're traveling from somewhere, let's get you to get your money's worth while you're there. If, you know, the more that we can give people to enjoy and to have that kind of little weekend away, fun weekend, and immerse themselves from a Friday to a Sunday, an absolute fantasy, you know, fun, isn't that great? It just seems like that's such a fun thing to be able to offer to people. So I think, Lisa, we kind of knew that we wanted it to feel like, also with the whole never ending, you know, over 3 days, it's certainly going to feel never ending for me.
Anyone who travels to the event, like London's not a cheap place to be staying overnight too. So if you can offer something where you really make the most of your trip down, and also what I really love about it is it's like you can make it a whole experience from Friday to the end of Sunday, or you can just pick and choose things that you want to do. And I mean, I'm really excited. I haven't been to anything like this before. Everything I've done is like your kind of standard Comic-Con. So I want to join Tammy's workshop and do all these fun things too. I'm really looking forward to it.
You'll be doing the workshop, but you'll also be hosting a panel.
I know. Hopefully not at the same time.
They are so much fun hosting those
I'm
sort of
excited.
things. So who have you got? I mean, obviously, maybe you can't say who's on the panel because you did mention you may still be announcing guests. But what information can you give me about the panel itself? Is there a set time that it's going to be running? Is it half hour? Is it an hour? Is it 10 hours? 10 hours. You can do it, Lisa.
It'll probably be around sort of 45 minutes, but we always give a little bit longer in case things do run a little bit longer. We haven't got a schedule at the moment because we are still adding in guests and activities and fun stuff, which we'll be doing all the way through the end of April, probably into mid-May. We usually like to publish the schedule around 2 weeks before the event so that people can start thinking about it and get organised. But it's really difficult to do it any earlier because we're trying to throw as much at it as possible. And as more people confirm that they can do a workshop or that they're even going to be there, we start to think, okay, great. Well, do we need to add another panel for this person? Do we want to give them this extra photo opportunity, whatever it might be? So it's all going to be changing. So yeah, sorry Stuart, we can't tell you much more about the panel. Everyone that we've announced that's worked on Neverending Story, Legacy and franchise will be on the panel, and we've got more to come who will be added to the panel.
How much are you looking forward to the Friday night, Lisa, with the unveiling of your documentary?
I mean, I'm nervous. I always get nervous when people see it, especially given how many people in the documentary are going to be in the audience too. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And then after the screening, we're going to have a Q&A with myself, Tammy, and Lamal is going to be there on the Friday night. And then, we'll have a quiz, and then it'll just be really fun. A little bit of trivia, a little bit of audience interaction. Yeah, I'm nervous, but I'm excited.
I've seen your other documentaries. You've nothing to be nervous about.
Thank
Nothing.
you.
I saw Navigator first, and then I saw Flash, and then obviously I'll be watching Neverending Story when that comes out. So somebody had left a comment on one of the Facebook pages asking about streaming or something like that, and I leapt in because I do go on physical media, buy the Blu-ray because there'll be extras on it. There are extras on the Blu-ray.
There are. I didn't count exactly, but there's at least 75 minutes worth of extras on it. Everything from the trailer and trailers to the other documentaries to extended scenes. There's the clip that I did where we go back to Munich, Bavaria Studios with Tammy. That's a 15-minute edit in itself. An extended sequence from the Comic-Con, another documentary short I did on Renato Casaro, who's the movie poster artist. And just little tidbits of things that I really wanted to include in the documentary, but it just didn't work. So yeah, it's at least 75 minutes. So a lot of bonus features.
And also, if people meet you, they can get it signed. You can't get a digital copy signed, can you? I've never worked out to get a digital streaming version signed. So a disc is always the way for me. Plus, it looks cool on a shelf.
It looks great on the shelf, and you can get little collector patches with it too, and there'll be some other fun things. So I think just physical media, it's so nice to have something tangible. And in the Blu-ray, we have this little 12-page booklet as well, this little collector booklet. And I just, if it's streaming or in the cloud or wherever it goes, like, it's not personal. You don't remember your iCloud songs the same as you do your VHS collection from when you were little. So go physical media. And
if it's in a cloud, you don't own it.
Nope.
It can get yanked and it can disappear, and you're like, where's my Neverending Story documentary? And it's like, mine would be on my shelf. They'll just put it in and watch it.
But having done these, I'm really amazed how many people really do love physical media still. We're going to do a VHS release of the Neverending Story documentary. We did one on Navigator and it sold out. So I'm looking forward to getting the VHS release out as well. And it's just something that people say is disappearing, but it really isn't when you talk to this, Comic-Con nostalgia loving crowd.
Yeah, I think we've gone from just, we buy physical media to becoming collectors now. But I think the job title's changed. We're now we're like archivists. We're like the guy, and I've forgotten his name, but he's in charge of the bookshop, and he's the one that gives Basti and the Neverending Story.
Coriander.
That wonderful gentleman. We become him.
Yeah.
We just hand. It sounds kind of weird now, handing children movies. You can't. Yeah. In '84, I guess you could do that. Now you can't, so it's frowned upon. So what can somebody expect to show up? So say somebody thinks, I've seen all the guests that are going. I really love collecting signatures or photo ops, or I've got a poster at home I want to get signed. Does that work for them showing up? To how will that work? What can they leave with?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's so nice about these smaller events, and this is an intimate event, and I would say to people, if they're thinking like not sure about buying tickets or waiting, our last two events have sold out, just to say. So we do think this will be a sellout event. So don't wait too long, because once they're gone, they're gone. We've only got a capacity of around 500-600 for the Saturday. So it's really nice. It's a nice size, but it means that you don't just go up and get your autograph and you move on. You can stand and chat to the person, talk to them about your experiences, talk to them about why you love the film. They want to hear it. Everyone that's coming, all of the special guests are so excited. They're so excited about meeting everyone. The stories behind the scenes that they've been telling Lisa and I that they want to share with people. You can just tell how much they love it and how much they want to share that with all the attendees. So I think not only will people be able to go away with an autograph or a selfie, but you'll be able to go away with that memory of having a special moment with that person that worked on the thing that you loved. And maybe you'll go away with a few of their stories as well. And for me personally, when I attend events, that is the most special thing, is to be able to go and have those chats and have those experiences. So I think that's a little something extra. People don't need to pre-order any of that. You just turn up on the day, you can buy your autographs and selfies at the table. That's all fine, no like pre-planning, and we'll make sure that everyone gets everything that they need to on the day. And then the workshops that we do, again, people can go along and just do something a little bit different.
I mean, you mentioned you get to chat with the guests and ask some questions. Sadly, that's become like a bit of a dying thing in a lot of conventions. I've read a lot of people attending other conventions where it's like, oh no, you don't get to meet them. You just queue up, you get your pick. And I'm like, no, I don't.
No.
But
Yeah,
that seems to be more common, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and the thing is, with the bigger events, it works because they've got a lot of people to get through, and it's very disappointing if you desperately want to get an autograph but you miss out. So that whole cattle market thing where they shuffle people through, unfortunately it's a bit necessary, because otherwise lots of people will go away really disappointed that they didn't even get to have their autograph. And these events are, they've got 100,000 people in them to get through, so that makes sense for those types of events. That's why we try to do something a little bit different, and we're not the only ones. There are other smaller events that do exactly the same, where there's less attendees and it's a little bit more niche, and you can have that kind of more intimate experience.
Like you said, the sort of cattle market thing, I think for the event it works, because otherwise it would never happen. But for a guest showing up going, oh, I'm finally going to be able to meet XYZ, and then to just not, it's kind of like me. I prefer the more intimate. I mean, it's 500-600. Is that intimate? I guess it is. It's smaller than some of the big warehouse ones, and I prefer those type where that you're going to come away going, I've just spoke to the guy who was in Free Willy. This is amazing. He was in the Neverending Story too. Oh, yes, so he was. But he was in Free Willy. Or I've come away.
And in all 3 Free Willies as well. I think that's the only time where a cast member hasn't been recast for something. And again, like Jason, he'll love to talk about Free Willy. He loves it. He's got great experiences. Yeah. He loves to talk about all the projects that he's done. He's just done a new horror film, which is a bit different. Which is a really fun, another thing that I think will become like another cult horror, so he's excited to talk about that as well. But yeah, just lovely, all of them lovely, aren't they, Lisa? We're very lucky that they're all delightful.
And I think you can tell when you go to events when someone doesn't want to be there, and you can tell when you go to events when someone does want to be there. And so the fact that something like this, everyone who's there, like Zay says, is really excited to be there, and I think that'll show through in what they get out of it and what the attendees get out of it, and the whole energy will be different.
Yeah.
And obviously the nature of the fact it's about the Neverending Story and the fantasy movies of the 80s, that hopefully doesn't bring miserable people, does it? Everybody who's showing up to this sort of event is going to feel, wow, this is amazing, I'm going to have such a good day. And the audience, all the not the guests like Tammy and stuff, but the guests who have paid to come in and whatnot, they will all be in a wonderful, chirpy mood, looking at people who have cosplayed as a luck dragon. That could be awkward if if you get too many luck dragons, because they're quite long, those things, aren't they?
We'll make it work. We'll put provisions in place for luck dragons, don't worry.
There's a really iconic photo that goes around of a cosplay. They put a horse's head on the ground and then knelt down with the reins, and it was just, I was like, you can't go as Atreyu in the Swamp of Sadness to a cosplay. That's awful.
It's so awful but so good. It's so clever. I always go like, oh, that's amazing. Oh, that's horrible.
It was very creative.
It's like, that's brilliant. Get out, you traumatizing children. Here's your prize. Go away. Yeah. But that scene is one of the most iconic one. Usually when you mention Watership Down, as we mentioned before, on something, people go, oof. And then when you mention Neverending Story, like, oh, the horse. The horse. Every time I watch the Neverending Story, I'm still hoping the horse comes out. And I know it's not going to happen because, DVDs don't work like that. But he does come back again. Yeah. So it's always nice to think, yeah. But it was still pretty heartbreaking. It's a dark film I don't even know if I would class it as a children's film. I think it's an everybody film. I think, the Neverending
It's
Story.
very adult themes, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
How would that go down if it came out nowadays, do you think? If they marketed it exactly the same way it came out, do you think people would be like, this is outrageous, this is traumatizing me? Or do you think it'd be fine?
I think if they made it today, the horse would probably like last minute survive.
Yeah.
I don't think kids these days would be able to handle such
And it wouldn't be a real horse either. It would be,
No.
it would
CGI
be
horse.
No.
a CGI horse for sure.
It
Yeah.
would.
I think it'd be
it's
quite a
tough.
different film
Poor
today.
horse. Poor
What
horse.
interesting with the rumors of the announcement of the remake, which I don't know if it'll happen, but if it does, it'd be interesting to see how they do it.
So often we hear this is coming out. Oh yeah, no, it's not. It's so, until it's on my screen, then who knows? Anything can happen. I'm fine with it. I'm not one of these that gets mad. It's like, how dare they remake a classic? Because remakes aren't a new thing. A lot of people think that they are. They think, oh, the past 10 years, all they do is remake things. Well, they don't. They don't.
I appreciate films we grew up with were remakes and we thought they were original, but I think it's when they remake and it just doesn't feel like they really care. They're just doing it for the sake of capitalizing on the IP or whatever it might be, rather than making it as though they're doing it for the first time. It just feels like a lot of them get washed over, but we'll see.
Somebody on my Facebook a couple of months back was going mad about, why doesn't Hollywood make original films anymore? This is all they do is remakes. And I'm like, it's the audience's fault. And it really is. It's because this is what the audience goes to watch. And I used as an example the top 20 films of last year. And something like 17 of them were sequels and remakes or based on IPs. I think there was only Oppenheimer. There's an argument for Barbie being an original one, which I think I put that in there. And I think the other one was Elemental. And every other film in that top 20 list was a remake or a sequel or part of a franchise. And it's like, well, that's why studios focus a lot on remakes, because you lot aren't going out watching the original films, and you need to start watching the original films to then make the studios go, what are people paying money for? Let's make more of those. So I blame the audience. Definitely, it's all their fault.
Well, here's a fun fact that I learned on the way is that Alan Oppenheimer, voice of Falcor and narrator and all those, second cousin to the Oppenheimer.
Really?
Like, there you go. That was an exciting fact that I learned. When the worlds literally collide.
I saw his name on the cast list or the credits list for the documentary, and I'm like, and then I just moved on. I'm like, that's a unique surname. I would not for a second have thought relative. Clearly a relative.
It is the surname, but just the loveliest man. And if in the bonus features of the Blu-ray, he does there's a clip with him doing a whole slew of voices of other characters that I had no idea that he did. So he's just a gem.
I am so happy that you're delving into the Neverending Story, and we'll be sharing so much more. We talked before about the special editions or lack of, other than the German one. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the physical media version because then I get more Neverending Story
coming out. It's been a long time.
And then what is your next one? Because you're already hard at work on your next one. You don't know how to rest, do you?
We are. So we're halfway through. Well, I say halfway through. We've now done 13 interviews and a few little actuality bits for Goodfellas. And I appreciate that it's 1990, but it was filmed in 89. And Ash, my husband / producer, said, please do a film that I really love. And the opportunity came up to do Goodfellas, and it's his favorite film. So we're doing that really for Ash, but I love the film anyway. And just got back from New York and New Jersey doing a shoot there. And then the 5th one will be Life After Greece. So, and then the 6th one will be hopefully something I can announce soon, but very 80s and very exciting.
What would you hope it would be, Zay? Obviously, don't mention the one that you might know, you might not know. I don't know. But
I've requested so much from Lisa. I'm like, oh, do you know what was great? Do this, do this, do that. And so she knows I want all of them, and all of those sort of 80s films. I was saying to her the other day about, what's one that's a bit of a niche, Return to Oz. I really love that film. It's got a lot of the kind of the Star Wars and Dark Crystal puppeteers in there that worked on that. And then they made, I really love Monster Squad. That's a great one. But then there was a bit of a documentary, Wolfman's Got Nards, made on sort of a bit of the legacy of that. So there've been lots of little things on a lot of these, but what Lisa does is like I think like the proper version. So not only is it, you get to see a bit of the making of and stuff you've never really seen before in some of these stories, but then to sort of follow on with like the legacy, the fandom, how it's sort of affected people, and kind of where are they now and their reflections is so interesting to me. So I think Lisa could do any movie, and if I had to request, I'd be like, do them all, Lisa.
Yeah. There are a couple that Zay and I will work on together, so there's some exciting things happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought your life after the Navigator was fascinating. You touched upon that it's not just here's the story of the film, it's what happened to the actors and whatnot after the movie and how their life has changed. And Navigator, I think, was an exceptional documentary.
I really like Navigator. I'm really proud of it, and also I think when you have such a special person like Joey is, it just, there's so much more than it just him telling his story. Like the filming helped him recover, which is just the most like crazy thing to think about. So that one's really special to me. So I'm glad you enjoyed that. That's
got to be like one of the ultimate rewards, isn't it? Because I watch films, they entertain me, I love them. But if Joey's watched a film and it's helped his life become better, or participated in the film and his life's become better, that's got to be pretty amazing.
I mean, it's so surreal. We would literally pen pals while he was in jail, and then his focus to stay on the straight and narrow after jail was the fact that we were doing this documentary. So it's pretty bizarre to think, this kid that I watched growing up, like literally I used to hope that my freckles on my arms were secret star charts that had been planted, and I'd try and match it up to the sky, and maybe it's a sign that that's like where I had been abducted. And I was obsessed with After The Navigator growing up. So it was definitely a very surreal experience, and such a lovely guy.
Have you disproved the freckle theory, or is that still a possibility?
I still leave the door open just in case. You never know. We're finding stars all the time, so I hope, occasionally I might look at a clock, and if 5 minutes have passed and I can't realize, like, if I can't put an action to what happened in those 5 minutes, and maybe I was abducted and 8 years have passed. And
well, don't disappear between the 31st of May where's Lisa? It's the freckle thing, isn't it? Okay, that means you can sneak off it.
No, it's going to be a really fun weekend, and you should come as well, Stuart.
I'm planning on that. So I'm trying to work out the accommodation thing, and if I can crack that nut, then I will definitely be there. People are okay to take photos and shoot little videos and stuff around.
Yeah, absolutely. So photos and videos everywhere, but in the panel. So panels, you can take as many photos as you like, but we say no recording in the panels. But what we always do after the events is put out like a bit of a highlight, so people that couldn't make it can see some of the stuff that went on, and we'll try and get some of the highlights of the panel out as well. So but also I want to mention the quiz. So this is going to be so fun, and just for people that aren't sure how it works, we've got this unicorns versus dragons quiz. We're sort of separating our special guests into two groups. We might give them an opinion on which side they go, and we might not. We haven't decided yet. And then when the attendees come into that quiz, again, we're going to separate them, so they choose if they'd like to be on the unicorn side or the dragon side. And then if the special guests don't know the answer to a question, it's going to be then thrown out to the audience, but it'll be on their side. So it's kind of a very much, really interactive. The audience gets to participate, and if the audience gets a question right, then they get a prize. So it's going to be super fun. When we've done this before, it's so hilarious. The special guests get so competitive, which is great, and hopefully we'll have some fun sort of 80s trivia that maybe people don't know.
And if they get a question wrong, do they get killed by a wolf? Or is that just something I read on Facebook, therefore it's probably not true?
Yeah, well, you've got to be careful what you read on the internet,
Really?
Stuart, but anything could happen. I know
you get thrown into the nothing. And so what is the rest of the day like for you? Because you've just arrived somewhere. Have you been somewhere else, Lisa, and you've just come back?
I just landed from New York yesterday after 6 days for Goodfellas. So I'm a little jet lagged, but I am in the final stages of doing German translations for all the subtitles for the Blu-ray. And then thanks to Google Translate. And then just getting everything ready for the streaming release. So busy.
And what can you say about the release? So when is it coming out? Where can people get the physical media? Because obviously that's the way to go. Where can they get it?
So you can get it from my website, lifeaftermovies.com. Also, if you buy them off Amazon and eBay, that's just still me anyway, but the website's the best place to do it. And then streaming. So the Blu-ray will be done, hopefully start shipping end of April. So pretty soon. And then the streaming, it'll be on Amazon, but through Amazon, it's a bit tricky because they can't tell you an exact date. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 months. So as soon as it's up and QC'd, then I just sit and wait for them to say it's online. But so maximum 2 months, but maybe in 2 weeks.
And if they buy them from it's a weird financial question, this one, but if somebody buys one off Amazon and somebody buys one direct from your website, is it better for you if they buy it direct from your website, or does
it is? It is. And also on the website, I do some signed copies. So any signed copies that I'll end up getting from Tammy, there's signed copies from Joey available on the website. So anything like that is only the website. But also I've been trying to be better with response I've had from people in terms of financial. So you can get either just the disc, which is cheaper postage and cheaper price, or you can get the collector bundle, which comes with the patch, a Polaroid, some collector postcards. So that's a fun little collector pack. So there's 2 options for people.
The bundle sounds my favorite, I think.
Always.
Yes.
And if you get it at the convention, then you can get it signed by all the people that were in it.
Exactly.
Which is what I'm going to do.
And that's
available for sale at the convention.
And also I've noticed on your official website, the Neverending Story website, you're selling posters as well, including that sort of poster, which is that one.
Yeah, so we're going to have some great posters that people can pick up. So if they don't want to just get a print signed, because obviously at the table most of the guests will have their like 8x10 prints of the films that they were in, or the scenes that they were in. But for me personally, I love a movie poster and I love it signed by as many people as possible. So I think that'll be nice for people to pick up one of those and then go and get that signed, and then you can get it framed, and it's good fun. So lots of different options. We try to think of as much as possible, so people can get everything they need. But yeah, some people love to get a Blu-ray signed. I like to get a Blu-ray signed. I think that's really fun. So yeah, people have that option as well. And there'll be lots of different merch there on the day. Tammy's got merch, Lisa's got merch, we've got merch. We've got loads of great vendors to announce. We've got our good friends at Truffle Shuffle, which will have an amazing pop culture stand. We've got sculptors, we've got artists, we've just got lots to see, lots to kind of do, prepared to spend money.
It's as if it's a never-ending list of stuff to do over a weekend, isn't it?
Try to sort of, to cram in as much as possible to that one day. And it can be a real, when we're so excited and we've got so much we want to put in, unfortunately some stuff doesn't quite make the cut because we just don't have the time to do it, unfortunately. But yeah, we'll try and do as much as we can.
You will just have to organise another event for another year, maybe the 41st celebration of
you just
something.
Never know.
You never know. So what is your plans for the rest of the day, Zay?
Oh, my plans for the rest of the day. So I've got a couple of Zoom meetings with some potential guests. I cannot say who at this time, so that's nice and exciting. Possibly a few puppets, and and just this all the logistical stuff really that we're sort of piecing together now in our final sort of stages. We are kind of in that run up now. The 2 weeks before the event is a little bit crazy, just making sure we've got everything sorted, but I won't bore you with all the details because most of it is just boring logistical stuff.
Admin stuff. Yeah.
All the admin stuff, all that good stuff. On Friday, which is tomorrow, we'll be announcing we had a little vendor competition to win a half price pitch. So that's going to be announced, I think, possibly live tomorrow on our Facebook. So that'll be fun. And we will be doing some more competitions as well. So that's definitely something to watch our socials for. We've got some great collaborations. So there'll be some really great fun competitions that we'll be announcing in the next couple of weeks to win tickets and to win merch and to win some other fun stuff. So yeah, do keep an eye on that as well.
Well, my afternoon is to go look at your website and look at these bundles for these Blu-rays. So that's my thing for the afternoon. But I made a promise to myself to just do more geeky things and more nostalgia-based things. So the conversation with you, Zane, with you, Lisa, definitely fits into my 2024 geek out moment. So thank you both for taking the time out to have this conversation, but also to make documentaries about the Neverending Story and Flash and Navigator and Goodfellas and Grease, and also to put on a cracking event, which does look amazing. I'm really going to try to get there if I can crack this accommodation Rubik's Cube and sort that out, because I couldn't pick one day. I'd have to do all 3 days, because all 3 days, well, it's the same. They're all different. I would feel bad for the 2 days I didn't do.
We do promo, so you really have to.
I do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, we hope to see you there, Stuart. Thank you so much for chatting with us. It's been a pleasure. Anytime.
Enjoy your day, and thank you once again.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thanks,
Take
Stuart.
care.
Bye.
Bye.